Day one of the NFL draft is in the books, and today we're going to break down all 10 of the fantasy-relevant NFL draft picks from the first round and all of the dynasty implications for both the rookies who were drafted and also some of the veterans affected on the teams that they went to. Going to be a fun video. Of course, we will be live later tonight for round 2, round 3 of the NFL draft, and probably briefly on day 3 we'll be live as well. But Danny, any picks that you want to talk about first, or should we just go in order?
I think we should just start off straight at the top because this is the most obvious fit. I mean, we've been knowing that Cam Ward was going to go first overall to the Tennessee Titans really for the last 3 months. It was minus 20,000 on draft night. They obviously end up taking him at that first overall pick. In terms of winners, I think the clear number one winner here would be Calvin Ridley. We saw last year the spike week potential he had with Will Levis. It's just Will Levis was such an erratic quarterback, very volatile on a play-to-play, game-to-game basis. Yeah, Cam Ward does have his struggles sometimes in terms of spraying the ball, in terms of, like we said, trying to play hero ball under pressure. But realistically, Cam Ward coming in with first overall capital is a big win for Calvin Ridley. Wide receiver 36 in PPR points per game last year. We know the air yards are there. Now we have a quarterback that will consistently hit him down the field.
Yeah, only 59% of his passes were catchable last year. That was 97th among wide receivers in the NFL. We'll see what Tennessee does today. There's a very strong possibility that they take Luther Burden at the top of the second round, or they take Xavier Restrepo to reunite Cam Ward with his college teammate or something like that. But they needed QB help badly, man. The fact that Ridley post DeAndre Hopkins trade was like a functional wide receiver 2-3 type for a lot of people in fantasy speaks volumes to how he might actually just be undervalued in Dynasty right now. Upgrading to the whole offense means a lot too. I mean, I think Spears, Pollard, whoever else you might think is fantasy relevant. Again, we'll see if they address the running back position later on today. But it's good news for everybody involved. We knew it was happening. It was not really a surprise to any of us, so we don't really need to spend too much time on it. But good news for Cam Ward. First overall draft capital. We have him ranked kind of inside the top 15 to 18 range of the quarterback position. I think he's a little bit of a risky bet still. So I have him, I believe, quarterback 18 or 19 right now. I have him at 18. He's right in the range with, obviously, Prescott's a completely different type of quarterback because you'd be competing versus a rebuilding type of quarterback. But I think he's in a similar vein to a JJ McCarthy, who we don't really know what to expect right now, a little bit erratic. But McCarthy has a great supporting cast. We'll see what materializes of Tennessee's, but he's got the better draft capital.
Yeah, and I would have Cam Ward slightly above JJ McCarthy. Again, I had JJ McCarthy rated as a higher prospect, but I do think you have to respect the first overall capital, and you have to respect the potential knee concerns that we saw in year one for McCarthy compared to a fresh first overall pick landing in the Tennessee Titans system. So Cam Ward, again, they're going to score a lot more touchdowns, exactly what we want if we do have Titans players overall. Again, big win across the offense. We say Calvin Ridley is the main one, but like you said, Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, they have more touchdown opportunity, assuming the Titans don't add another back.
Yep. So the big news of the night was what happened at the number 2 overall pick with Travis Hunter in a trade up from the Jacksonville Jaguars going to the Jags. And the price that they paid was a 26 first from Jacksonville, who that you never know where that pick could be given the Jaguars' history. 5th overall pick. Obviously, the Browns trade down, take Mason Graham from Michigan. 36th overall pick as well. So the high second round pick, that is a big price to pay for Travis Hunter. I would say the biggest winner here is Travis Hunter himself. Now, obviously, we knew that Cleveland was going to play him at wide receiver as well, but the Jaguars paid that much to go up and get him. He's not going to be the number 1 there right away because of Brian Thomas Jr.'s presence, but Jaguars brass said, and I quote, this was a direct quote from Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, after the first round. He was asked, do you have a plan for Travis Hunter? What is he going to play? Obviously, Hunter himself wants to play both sides of the ball 100% of the snaps. He said, we have a plan right now of primarily on offense with learning the defensive system over time. So he is going to start at wide receiver. And if you think about it, instead of going to Cleveland, where we have no idea who the quarterback is, no current solution on the roster, we'll probably take one today. Trevor Lawrence is there, who's on a big contract, who now has no excuses not to be a great quarterback, and I think generally has been underrated or a little bit over-scrutinized over the last couple of years. Yep. This is a pass-heavy unit. Liam Cohen coming in, very creative, a lot more creative than Kevin Stefanski would have been probably with a talent of this nature with Travis Hunter, and this investment signals a lot. That is a lot to pay for one player.
Yeah, but Travis Hunter, I think he's a gold jacket caliber player, a guy that I compare to Odell Beckham Jr., specifically at the wide receiver position. If you're getting Odell Beckham Jr. plus Derek Stingley at quarterback, I mean, Gladstone also made this reference. I believe he said there are very few players that can change the course of NFL history. And we believe we just got one with Travis Hunter. There's a reason why you trade, like you said, 536, that 2026 one, to go climb up and get a Travis Hunter. I'm fully convinced that Cleveland was perfectly fine sticking at 2 if they did not get a Godfather offer, but a Godfather offer is exactly what they got. And I think Travis Hunter is worth every penny.
Yeah, no, we don't usually see that in the NFL draft. Normally, it's like, okay, this guy, I bet Cleveland was in love with him. Like, I bet they absolutely wanted him. But
they called him Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, this must be an offer that they couldn't have refused. And one other thing I want to point out here is I just think a lot of people are going to overthink this one. I think everyone's going to go, oh, well, he's got to compete with Brian Thomas, and we don't know for sure if he's going to be a wide receiver. Like, he's at worst 104 in your rookie drafts. And both of us are going to have him ranked 102.
I'll simplify it like this. People will say, well, you have Brian Thomas Jr. there. Danny, you're obviously very high on Brian Thomas Jr. And yes, I am very high on Brian Thomas Jr. But these are the 2 target earners in this entire offense. Sorry, Brenton Strange. I'm sorry, Travis Etienne. The offense will function through these 2 superstar wide receivers, and I have them ranked according to that. I have Brian Thomas Jr. Again, he was my 4. I do think with Travis Hunter there, legitimate target earner. I dropped him behind Malik Neighbors, behind Puka Nacua in my rankings to number 6 overall. And I have Travis Hunter sandwiched between Drake London and Nico Collins at number 9 overall. I think these 2 wide receivers have the opportunity to dominate this consolidated target share.
Yeah, and I have them at 7 and 11 respectively. So they're right in that same range for me. I think just don't overthink this one. Honestly, like people are going to overthink this one. Just don't overthink this. If nobody needs to take him at 102, then by all means trade down to 103, 104. If the market, we don't know how the market's going to materialize yet, but if people are like, oh, it's Omar Hampton at 102, tier of his own, that kind of thing, then definitely trade down and select Travis Hunter at that point in time. You don't need to select him at 102, but we are going to have him ranked at 102. We'll see how the market materializes for a lot of these players. Sneaky winners: Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, no Ashton Jeanty. Yeah. And now they also don't have a 2nd round pick as well, but they do have multiple 3s. I believe they have the 6th pick in the 3rd round, 24th pick in the 3rd round. And they also have 2 4s as well. So they definitely could add to this position. I wouldn't celebrate yet if you're a Travis Etienne manager, but definitely significantly less of an investment than what Ashton Jeanty would have represented with the 5th overall pick if they would have stuck and picked there. And winners, obviously Trevor Lawrence too. I moved him up a couple spots among the quarterback position to quarterback 13, because now in addition to Liam Cohen, who obviously just got Baker Mayfield to have 44 total touchdowns and 4,500 passing yards and almost 5,000 total yards, Trevor Lawrence now has him, and he has Brian Thomas in his 2nd year, and obviously Travis Hunter, who's one of the most talented receivers we've seen of the last couple of years. I would say, like you said, slight loser to Brian Thomas Jr. I moved him down to wide receiver 7. The only difference is that I moved him below St. Brown. You still have him ahead of St. Brown. From wide receiver 5, because he was already below Malik Neighbors for me before the draft. So I think these guys can coexist. This is easily the best young wide receiver duo in the league. Easily.
Not even close. Not even close. I think when it's all said and done, both these guys have legitimate top 5 wide receiver in the NFL type of ceilings. And I do think, given the modern front office, you have Gladstone coming in, kind of the fuck them pick mentality that we got coming over from the LA Rams. When you see a superstar level player available, you get aggressive, you make that move. And quite frankly, I just trust Liam Cohen's track record as well. 2 very functional offenses that he oversaw with Will Levis at Kentucky. And obviously we saw his stint with the Rams. He saw what he was able to do with you guys this past year. There's no doubt in my mind that this guy can call offense. And now he has a very, very talented quarterback with 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL at his disposal.
I really hope the Cleveland Browns fans didn't do what they did back in 2011, which is trade off of a future Hall of Fame receiver in Julio Jones.
I think they did.
Thank God, Mason Graham's a great player. You got 36, which is a really high capital asset. 26-1, maybe next year is the year that maybe the Cleveland Browns are focusing on, adjusting their quarterback efforts or whatever, and that's why they wanted to pick in that class. Regardless, man, you might alienate your fan base if Travis Hunter becomes a superstar.
For sure. And I'm not sure if you had already mentioned this. You mentioned Trevor Lawrence. You moved up to 13, right?
Yes.
And I actually was a little more aggressive. Again, I think that tier is very fluid. I actually was able to get him up to 10. If you want to rank him 13, that's fine. I think that tier, like I said, from Knicks at 9, where I have him, to Murray at 14 is very fluid. I'm a believer. I love the Liam Cohen offense. I think he has 2, like I said, of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And I think Trevor Lawrence has the talent to be able to take a step back up.
Yep. Definitely still a question mark for Lawrence. Hasn't done it in the last couple of years. I think he was quarterback 22 in points per game last year. So this is a guy that definitely needs to play better. But combined with the coaching, combined with hopefully some offensive line upgrades, that's probably what they need on day 2 and early day 3 of the NFL draft. And obviously Travis Hunter being added. Good news all around for those players. Ashton Jeanty goes number 6 to the Raiders, which is something that we were all kind of expecting for a long time. Winners and losers are pretty straightforward here. I think the whole offense will take an elevation here. Pete Carroll comes in, changes the culture. Geno Smith comes in to stabilize the quarterback position. He's going to have an easier job as a competitive quarterback option for a lot of dynasty managers if people are looking for a cheap QB3 or QB2 or whatever the case is. Geno Smith is going to be pretty decent, I think. Brock Bowers now will have less attention on him because there's another superstar player in this offense. Jacoby Myers probably remains a value for a lot of people if you're looking for a cheap wide receiver. I think this team could win anywhere between 8 and 10 games and legitimately be a solid top 15 level offense. I think the only real losers are like the Bears and Cowboys, who probably wanted Ashton Jeanty. I think everybody in the Raiders situation wins because Jeanty, maybe he's a slight loser because he could have went to Chicago or he could have went to Dallas, but the guy's going to get 300 plus touches his rookie season. There's absolutely nobody on the field that's going to take touches away from this guy. He'll be a first round redraft pick. He's currently a top 3 dynasty running back for me. He's Ashton Jeanty. He's an absolute superstar and he's going to get every touch he can handle. Yeah.
Whatever you thought about Bijan Robinson when he landed with Atlanta, that's what we should be expecting from Ashton Jeanty, number 6 overall here. Superstar talent, 3 down workload, 300 plus touches. You mentioned top 3 running back. I'm personally okay if somebody said, hey, he's my running back and win a dynasty. That's actually where I have him as well, because you want to re-roll on an elite talent. Again, if you want to go the Gibbs and Bijan route because they are proven assets, elite assets for that matter, that's perfectly fine. For me, though, being able to re-roll it on a guy that I expect to be a top 3 to 5 running back for the next 5 years, I'm perfectly good ranking him at 1 as well.
I mean, I think you could make the argument that it's even a better landing spot than Bijan had because, Bijan was going to a good running scheme, but he had Algier there, who's definitely better than anybody that the Raiders have right now as far as running back competition. And Desmond Ridder was their quarterback when they drafted Bijan Robinson. Geno is very capable. He's going to throw the ball to Jeanty quite a bit, probably too, because he's an older guy who's not very mobile. So this is as good of a landing spot as Jeanty probably could have gotten. Again, maybe you could argue Chicago would have been better, but Swift is better competition. Maybe you could have argued that Dallas would be the best landing spot. They probably would have been the best landing spot for him. So regardless, I think just you got 101. Don't overthink it. As much as Hunter maybe is in the conversation for some people, I still think it is pretty clearly that Jeanty is the first overall pick in most people's rookie drafts. Tet McMillan goes to the Carolina Panthers at 8th overall. It was a long, winding road, but we ultimately ended up here. This is something that a lot of us were predicting all the way back in like January.
This is the biggest smokescreen of the draft, by the way. We heard, they're going to prioritize the defense. They like Walter Nolan. They like Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker was like minus 150 to go there for the longest time. And then all of a sudden, the day before draft day, he ended up being plus money. Like everybody expected the Carolina Panthers would take a defensive player, but they did, like you said, support their quarterback with this selection. They got their true X wide receiver, 6'5", 215-pound Tet McMillan. You have Xavier Legette with the upside, with the athletic nature to be able to play inside and out. You have Jalen Coker, who proved himself down the stretch. All of a sudden, you have 3 capable wide receivers that you can basically use interchangeably.
And I think Adam Thielen's still there to teach these young kids how to play too.
Yeah, like obviously for what it's worth, Tet will be the one. I'm not saying Legette or Coker could be the one. No, like Tet will be the one. But having 3 big guys that you can play inside and out is just so valuable in this modern NFL.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a winner for Tet himself, obviously. The rumors that he could slip, overblown. They definitely were. Top 10 capital keeps that Drake London comp alive, obviously. Very clearly in
number
a tier
8
for me. Yeah, exactly. Very clearly in a tier for me with Hunter and with Hampton as very clearly 102 to 104 in some order. Again, I personally would still take Hunter 102, Hampton 103.
I think you have to put Ward in there too.
I don't think he's in there personally, myself.
Yeah, I just think the market might actually take him at 102. So I think at the very minimum, if you want to say 102 to 105, I think that would be the tier.
Again, I look at 3 top 12 players at their position. I have Hunter and McMillan as top 12 dynasty receivers, and Hampton, who we'll talk about in a second, as a top 6 dynasty running back, whereas Cam Ward is my quarterback 18. To me, that's a pretty big difference, and that's why they're not in the same tier for me. But anyways, winner, obviously, too, is Bryce Young. Suddenly, you've never been big in your life, but you are throwing to big people. You got Tet McMillan, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker. That is a lot of size on the outside, man.
Hey, if you can't see behind your offensive line, you may as well just throw it up to your 6'5" Giants on the outside.
Absolutely, man. Ultimately, Leggett and Coker are losers here because they could have been potentially the number 1 and 2 receiver for this team long term. But honestly, I don't think anybody was getting overly high on these guys. I think a lot of people recognize Leggett kind of had a disappointing injury-riddled rookie season, and Jalen Coker was obviously fun. There's a lot of Coke heads out there. Let's just be perfectly clear about that, including us, who were really high on Coker coming out. But Coker probably was better as a number 3 receiver projection because he's an undrafted free agent. You don't really want to put that much weight on him as a player from a small school who was an undrafted free agent. McMillan should have absolutely no issue being the alpha right away. This is a young offense. They have some veteran presence, like I said, with Adam Thielen probably teaching these guys what to do. I'm quite high on this offense. I think Dave Canales can get these guys playing really well.
I mean, we're clearly seeing Dave Canales' vision, right? Getting 6'3+ athletic freaks who are awesome in the open field, because all 3 of their top wide receivers, Leggett, who they took in the first round last year, Coker, who, like you said, got undrafted, but does have that type of skill set to be able to contribute after the catch. And obviously Tet McMillan, who we said that was one of his biggest strengths as a prospect this year. It's very clear that they want to get these guys on in breakers and let them produce after the catch, because that is what all 3 of these guys do extremely well. I also want to add quickly, ultimately, you mentioned the losers here with Leggett and Coker. The other losers, quite clearly, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys wanted Teteroa McMillan at number 12 overall. Thought if he got past number 8 at Carolina, there was a real possibility he'd be there at 12. And it does sound like if Tet was there, he was for sure going to be the pick. So for me personally, I would have loved Tet McMillan at the Cowboys. But with that being said, for fantasy, I do think number 8 overall to Carolina is also a very good landing spot.
Yeah, and Bryce Young, to your point about how Dave Canales wants to run this offense, you get a lot of crossing routes and stuff with these guys. Bryce is excellent on the move, man. You want to get this dude on the move, get him away from 6'7" offensive linemen that he's got to see over, get him on the move and let him throw to these guys. Sneaky winner also. You want 3 big receivers blocking for you, Chuba Hubbard. I think this is a sneaky good thing for him too, because you have that much size on the outside. It's going to result in a lot of big runs. And I think he is one of the better contending running back buys that you can get out there, because I don't think you have to pay for Chuba Hubbard what you'd have to pay for like Josh Jacobs or Jonathan Taylor or somebody like that. I think you could get Chuba Hubbard for probably a very, very late first round pick this year, or even maybe an early second round pick. Or if you were a big time contender and you expected to be, 110 to 112 next year, you could probably get Chuba Hubbard plus potentially for your own first round pick.
Yeah. Do I think he's going to have quite the same workload with Dowdle there behind him this year? Probably not. But like you said, Brooks is on the mend at least for 2025, if not even partially for 2026 with his second ACL tear. And we saw Chuba Hubbard last year legitimately play Pro Bowl caliber football. So no doubt in my mind, he is at least going to be a starting running back for the next 1.5 years. And if you can get that, might not even have to pay first round capital, probably closer to the early to mid second range. And I'd be able to stomach that for Chuba Hubbard as well.
Yeah, I remember I was looking at the trade finder and somebody got Chuba Hubbard for like their 26 late one, and they got the 208 on top of Chuba Hubbard. I'm like, that's a pretty good return on getting a contending running back there. JT Sanders too, very possible they could have taken Loveland or Warren. So I think he's a sneaky winner there as well. Speaking of Loveland and Warren, they're the next 2 players off the board. Colston Loveland, 10th pick to the Chicago Bears. Winner Caleb Williams, I mean, another weapon for the kid. Yeah. Ben Johnson will probably view him as the Sam Laporta of the offense, of course, and we know how creative Ben Johnson is with young tight ends. And then from Colston Loveland's perspective, top 10 capital and the first tight end off the board is no joke, man. That's a significant investment. They could have taken Warren and didn't. I think most NFL teams would have preferred Tyler Warren, but obviously the Bears, with that big slot wide receiver kind of usage that they can use for Loveland, he's a raw player, and getting to develop under a coach who's proven that he can develop young tight ends, because he took a tight end in Sam Laporta and gave him one of the better rookie seasons we've seen in the history of the NFL, and decent production out of him in year 2, although it was, albeit a little bit of a down year. This is great for Loveland, man. I think a lot of people are going to take him anywhere between probably 109 to 111 in rookie drafts.
Think of it like this too. You have a guy that is a smooth as butter separator in the middle of the field, with 2 guys that can win easily outside the numbers with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. You just have guys that can impact all parts of the field for your offense. And if you're Caleb Williams, like you said, you get a big 6'6", 255-pound tight end that can legitimately offer you some juice after the catch. This offense is going to be a ton of fun to watch. And like you said with Colston Loveland, number 10 draft capital is no joke. In fact, again, I'm not saying he's a better prospect than this guy. He literally just went higher than what Brock Bowers did last year.
Yeah, no, that's legit capital, man. Like it's pretty impressive that he could go that high. I wasn't expecting. I would have definitely expected that the Bears would have preferred Tyler Warren personally. Like I really would have expected that to be the case. And the fact that Cole Kmet can now probably be the early down blocker, I would imagine.
He's going to be your Y for sure.
Yeah, he's a more prototypical inline tight end. He's an experienced veteran. He's absolutely a better blocker at this point in time than Colston Loveland. That's not the worst news for Colston Loveland. Like, they'll probably go a lot more 12 personnel. The other thing, too, is Cole Kmet, who's obviously the biggest loser of this, last year of a big money deal in terms of dead money, like they can get out on his contract after this year. They might even deal him today or tomorrow. Like, it's very possible that the team could be in the market for a tight end. They trade for Cole Kmet, because I think a lot of NFL teams are probably a little bit higher on Cole Kmet than NFL, fantasy players are. So I think that's an interesting wrinkle that could happen with Colston Loveland. Now, let me ask you this question. Are DJ Moore and Rome Odunze losers of this?
I don't think losers per se. Like, if they drafted like a Tet McMillan, I think that would be obviously a clear sign. But at the same time, we've seen, for example, I mean, I guess if you can say in terms of their top end asset upside, they are losers. But we saw, for example, with the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams all being able to coexist. And if you kind of split up the Amon-Ra St. Brown high end between Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, like, let's just say instead of the disparity in production between Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams, we saw you kind of had both Rome Odunze filling in between those guys. I can kind of see that, like, both 950 to 1150 yard type of players.
Yeah, and for long term, people might be wondering, okay, well, Odunze and Loveland are the young players on this offense. Yep. They're going to be the ones that are with Caleb Williams for a long time. DJ Moore, after this year and after next year, has outs in his contract. So it's possible that this is Colston Loveland's a raw player, year 1, year 2. Hopefully he's heavily efficient, able to, affect the game anytime he gets the football. Come year 3, he has his top 3 to 5 fantasy football season. I think that's probably what you're hoping for if you take Loveland. He's probably a better pick for rebuilders than he would be for contending guys. And I could actually even argue that the guy we'll talk about next in Tyler Warren, maybe if you need a tight end immediately, he might be a better option. But we'll have to see what the market kind of thinks of these guys, because I think going into rookie drafts, everybody would have said Warren most likely was going to get drafted higher and maybe go higher in rookie drafts as a result.
And I think we should end off with one final winner. That is, despite all the criticism we got, despite all the Tyler Warren is a tier above Colston Loveland as a prospect, Fantasy Stock Exchange is a winner for having Colston Loveland tight end 1, because the NFL kind of validated that right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, one NFL team did at the very least. So we'll regardless, Tyler Warren's the next player we got to talk about, 14th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. Selfishly, I actually kind of like this, because I think now I'll actually get some shares of Tyler Warren, because I think I wouldn't have had he gone to the Jets at 7th overall or the Bears at 10th overall. I think a lot of people would have taken him a lot higher. I mean, objectively, Anthony Richardson sucks. Objectively, Daniel Jones isn't much better. And
Did you hear, by the way, when Ballard did the introductory press conference, he's like, oh, you're just getting a versatile player. He played a little bit of quarterback snaps, and people were like, is this their long-term plan?
Yeah. I mean, also objectively, Downs is a good player. Pittman's a good player. Mitchell can separate. Pierce had a pretty decent season last year. They can all earn targets. So people are going to look at Tyler Warren and be like, okay, so like, what is the role here? What is the fantasy upside here? Because you don't have a lot of passing production in this offense. At least maybe we get Danny Dimes playing like 2024 Sam Darnold or something like that. But ultimately, the NFL stands for not for long. And Steichen's a really good coach, in my opinion. He can use a versatile guy like this. Quarterback is probably not going to be an issue at least 1 to 2 years from now. They'll probably have a solution of some kind, hopefully. You'll never know what will happen with that wide receiver core too. Pittman has probably got outs in his contract very soon. I like the fit schematically. He has absolutely zero competition at this position group. He will be 100% of the snaps probably from week 1 of his rookie season. And he's a great player. So I'll gladly take discounts if people are worried about too many mouths to feed, who's the quarterback, that kind of stuff.
Another winner is our eyeballs, having to watch Mo Alley Cox and Kylan Grant and all those guys get snaps over the last few years. Now you got a legitimate tight end 1. The Colts have been salivating for a guy like Tyler Warren, really for, like I said, the last few years. And on top of that, if you are a Colts fan, getting to watch another big ass number 44 creating yards after the catch has to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and JT just got a hell of a lead blocker and edge sealer too. So that's good news for Jonathan Taylor. I'd say the loser is probably the wide receivers, just got more target competition. And I would say Pittman potentially is probably the biggest loser, because he could be now seen as expendable if Tyler Warren is great and establishes himself as maybe a number 1 or a number 2 target. But regardless, you probably have to notch, like I notched Pittman down a few spots in my rankings, Downs down a few spots in my rankings, and so on, because I do think it probably affects them a little bit. Big, I guess a winner maybe is whoever plays quarterback for this team, whether it is Richardson or whether it is Daniel Jones, because you got a nice weapons core.
Yep, I would agree with that.
So let's get into my Buccaneers. I'm wearing my shirt right now. Taking Emeka Egbuka at 19th overall was not on my bingo card. They didn't meet with him. They didn't bring him in for a 30 visit. I figured based on my comp for him being Chris Godwin and him having an excellent interview score. And I know, Jason Light's been the GM of my team for 11 years now. I know that he would have valued something like that. So I probably should have connected the tea leaves a little bit more. This was a quote from Jason Light. They had opportunities to trade down. There were teams that wanted to trade up. And I would presume probably for Egbuka, because Broncos at 20 was a heavily connected landing spot for him. He said, I would have thrown up if we traded down off of this player. Like if we traded down and Egbuka didn't fall back to us, let's say at like 23 or 25 or wherever they would have went down to, he said, I would have thrown up. This was a guy who was extremely high on their board. The biggest winner, obviously, is Baker Mayfield. 41 touchdowns passing last year, 4,500 yards passing. And you add this dude, there was a 5 to 7 game stretch last year where Cade Otton was their number one wide receiver because Evans was hurt and Godwin was hurt and McMillan was not playing well or not, the player he was down the back half of the season. The winner to me is my ability to get Egbuka shares because people don't like this fit at all. I've been scrolling through Dynasty Twitter all morning and people said it on our live as well. Oh, year one is going to be JSN. It's going to be Romo Dunze. Dude, I listened to the introductory presser and he's just a pro, man. I've never seen a more well-spoken rookie receiver in my life, dude. He's a dude. I highly doubt if you guys draft this player in a rookie draft that he's a miss. Maybe in year one, he's not a very productive fantasy asset. If you're a rebuilding team, he's going to be on a lot of my rosters.
Yeah. And again, people are going to make the connections. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Roma Dunze, a lot of mouths to feed early on, maybe not the most ideal rookie seasons. Well, we look specifically at Roma Dunze this year. He's still the wide receiver 16 on the Dynasty market, despite having what we would call a relatively disappointing season. And I don't think Egbuka is not going to be nearly as expensive in terms of his cost. I can see people settling on the market for him being the wide receiver 22, 23, 24, a guy that I'd be willing to rank as aggressively as number 19.
I think people might rank him a lot lower than we're willing to rank him to. Because, generally, I was higher on Egbuka the prospect than a lot of what Dynasty Twitter was. I'd say, obviously, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. He is a slight loser in the short term. He would have been better off going to Denver or something where he could get targets immediately. But like I said, heavy rebuilders, he'll probably slide 108, 109, 110, 111, depending on what happens today with Henderson and with Judkins and, Burden or whoever else could go ahead of him. There's going to be people who, if Burden goes 34, 35 to the Titans or something, there's going to be people who take Burden over Egbuka, probably Danny included. I would imagine you'd probably take Burden over Egbuka in that situation. It's going to happen.
If he's a New England Patriot, 100%. If he's a Tennessee Titan, obviously that would be a conversation. But yeah, you can argue, like you said, in the short term. And again, I had Egbuka and Burden literally with identical prospect rates. Obviously got there in different ways. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Burden and Egbuka are the exact same player. They're actually quite the opposite. But depending on where Burden goes today, I would consider doing that. Yes.
Yeah. And Henderson and Judkins, they go to good landing spots. They'll probably go ahead of him too. I would imagine Caleb Johnson as well. He goes to a good landing spot. He'll probably go ahead of him. Who knows, man? Milrow goes first pick of the second round. People might take him over him. He's a rushing quarterback. I think you're going to get a good discount on Emeka Egbuka is my point. The loser here is Jalen McMillan. He was just essentially nuked for fantasy, at least in the short term. I think McMillan's still a good player, but what's the number one rule of drafting if you're an NFL GM? You don't let good players stop you from taking great ones. And to me, Egbuka can be a great one, especially when you think about this fact. I absolutely believe that Mike Evans will hang it up either next year or the year after, because I don't think Jason makes this pick without that knowledge of how long Evans is going to play. He's 32 years old, already cemented his Hall of Fame case, in my opinion. And he probably knows he already has a Super Bowl ring. Obviously he could love to have another one. And the Bucs, in my opinion, are going to be one of the best offenses in the league and probably one of the better teams in the NFC this year. Egbuka could not have asked for better mentors to teach him how to be a pro, man. Evans and Godwin are pros. This is what Egbuka had at Ohio State when he got there. He had Wilson and Olave already there, established college football players, and he came in as a 5-star recruit. Shut up. He didn't say anything, just learned from these pros. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do in Tampa Bay.
Yep, I would agree there. I started reading the tea leaves a little bit once we saw, like Daniel Jeremiah, for example, I believe had Matthew Golden mocked to
They
the
liked
Bucks.
Golden too, according to
Um,
a lot of reports.
and when I saw that, I'm like, okay, like I don't think they're actually going to take a wide receiver, but like, why is Jeremiah mocking them a wide receiver? Like, I kept thinking about that going into the draft because I'm like, I'm thinking linebacker, I'm thinking edge, I'm thinking corner, I'm thinking all these freaking names at the top of the Bucks board. But they did the most obvious thing based off the mock. They ended up taking a wide receiver. It wasn't Golden, but it was Emeka Egbuka. And like you said, he automatically fills into what we expected the Jalen McMillan role to be, except you're getting a superior player to be able to fill that role. I love Jalen McMillan. I thought he was a really good prospect last year. I believe he was my wide receiver 12 in the class. Emeka Egbuka has the opportunity to literally be your Chris Godwin redux.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, I think Godwin will be there. He's 29 and a half years old. Evans is 32. As much as I love these guys, maybe a year from now, one of them is gone. Maybe 2 years from now, both of them are gone or something like that. Next year's wide receiver class doesn't look very good. I think this was a very smart pick by the Tampa Bay Bucks. And second, third, fourth, fifth round, you got time. You can address the cornerback position, the linebacker position. I think they really like their edges. And Jason Light literally said it. He's like, I don't think we really needed an edge. I know a lot of people were mocking us edge. They got Hassan Reddick, who they think can be a number one edge for them. They have Yaya Diaby, who can be a number two edge for them. They still like Chris Braswell, who they took in the second round. They like their depth. Anthony Nelson, some of the other guys. They'll probably address the position probably at some point in the draft. But I think that linebacker and corner are the two needs they're going to address today, most likely. And after that, they just need to stay healthy on defense. I mean, Jamel Dean wasn't healthy. Antoine Winfield wasn't healthy. You need to stay healthy on defense, and they can be a better unit. So if anybody's looking at this going, oh, the Bucks are going to suck on defense this year. I mean, it's good for us in fantasy, even if they do suck on defense.
Where do you think, let's just talk about Egbuka in best ball, because he was a guy in the big board that was going 7th or 8th round, give or take mostly. Where do you think he's going to end up winding up now? Because I feel like people are going to maybe even drop him close to the 10th round. And if he's available around there, I'm getting all my shares.
Yeah, I think he's a great best ball option. Best ball is going to be the place that is a good place to load up on him, because year one, yeah, he's probably not going to be a very productive, easily predictable when to start type of asset. But Godwin and Evans have dealt with injuries. They miss any time, he could win people leagues still. So I feel pretty confident that a year from now, we're going to look back and be like, yeah, that Egbuka pick was actually really sharp.
Question for you, because obviously we haven't entered day 2 yet. Do you think there is a possibility that maybe they didn't think Egbuka would fall, but because he did, they took the best player available and it would open up a potential move for McMillan? Or do you think the Bucks just going to beat him?
Jason, first off, came out and said this is not an indictment on Chris Godwin's rehab. Okay. First of all, he said Godwin's doing fine. We expect him back on the field in week 1. So if anybody's worried about that, I wouldn't be. Godwin probably a good buy low right now, to be honest.
Yep.
And Jalen McMillan, they said we still like Jalen McMillan. This was simply best player available. Like, I would imagine that Egbuka was like 6th or 7th on their board or something. Okay. Like total. Like, I think they were just. He said there's a group of players that if they're on the board at 19, we are not trading down, and Egbuka was one of those players. So yeah, I think that's a great move by them. Let's get into Omarion Hampton, who went 22nd overall to the Los Angeles Chargers. Tone setter, and a lot of people are going to probably, I would say rightfully to some degree, assume that he is now the 102 in rookie drafts, or at least the 103 in rookie drafts if you're like us and prefer Travis Hunter. Worst case scenario, he's 104 in rookie drafts behind Tedero McMillan, I would say. Hampton, big time winner here, because not only is this an excellent landing spot because you have Justin Herbert, you're running behind Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater and stuff. This team, the Chargers, led all NFL teams in gap attempt rate. I broke down a couple weeks ago a video breaking down gap runners, zone runners in the NFL draft, and Omarion Hampton had one of the biggest dichotomies between how good he was in zone and how good he was in gap, because he is a better gap runner than he is a zone runner. He was 5th among running backs in this class in positive run rate in gap concepts. He was 7th in this class in boom run rate in gap concepts, 8th in this class in bust or avoiding bust runs in gap concepts. This was one of his best landing spots. The Chargers ran gap runs 67% of the time, which led the NFL. Zone attempts, obviously, and conversely, was 32nd in the NFL at 32.82%. He was really good in this situation, and 15th in the class in positive play rate in zone, which was a big difference. He was 5th versus 15th in zone concepts. So he was much better in gap than he was in zone. This is great news for Omarion Hampton. First round capital to a great landing spot, to a great scheme, behind a good offensive line with a good quarterback. They'll probably add wide receivers at some point during the draft. This is great for Omarion Hampton. I would say I wouldn't blame anybody for taking him 102. I don't think it's outrageous to say that you would, because I have him as Dynasty RB5 right now behind Devon Achane and obviously Jeanty and Gibbs and Bijan.
Yeah, I think you clarified it pretty clearly. Gap dominant running back lands in a gap dominant system. You have Jim Harbaugh. We saw their running tendencies in year one last year. J.K. Dobbins was an RB1 in fantasy, and that was with Gus Edwards working into his workload. We'll talk about Najee Harris in a second. Obviously, you can make the case that Najee will eat into at least some of the workload early on, but it is very clear, especially in the money weeks of fantasy, week 7, week 8, week 9 on. This will be a full-fledged bell cow, and what I think will probably be one of, at worst, the top 15 or so offenses in the league.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might be worried that Harris is going to take away work early on, and I think that is probably a valid concern. He probably will take some work away early on, but we're talking Dynasty, not redraft right now. When we talk about him from a redraft lens, we'll probably change our tune a little bit in terms of what we think of the landing spot for Omarion Hampton. But in terms of long-term, like this dude's going to be an awesome option. And by at least midway through his rookie season, I'm sure he's going to be dominating. 22nd overall draft capital versus a 1-year contract. Pretty big discrepancy in terms of team investment.
Two things as well. Incentive laden contract where it's, I believe, 4.5 base with up to 9.5 million. So they already baked it in that if a running back that they really liked in the draft had fallen, that they weren't completely liable to a 9.5 million tag on Harris. So maybe that was a tea leaf we could have read into as well, is that the majority of Najee Harris's money was actually incentive laden rather than guaranteed. The other thing too is, where do you think he's going to go in redraft? Like, I legitimately think, I think he's going to be a 3rd round pick.
I think it's possible that he gets that high depending on what happens throughout training camp and all that kind of stuff. But I would say, gun to my head right now, he'll probably be an early 4th rounder, because I do think Najee Harris during training camp, he's our starter and all this kind of bullshit we're going to hear about Najee Harris. So that would be my takeaway. Obviously, if you guys traded for Najee after he got signed to the Chargers, you're probably a loser in this situation, because he is probably not going to be long for that situation. And I do think he got nuked, essentially. I think get nuked. Kid. Good offense, good for the offense overall, though, as well. I mean, probably not for Justin Herbert, because this is a further commitment to the run, which means he's probably, through 495 pass attempts last year, it's probably not going to change.
No. We may as well talk about the dynasty value, because like we said, we rose Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, conversely, we had to lower a couple players to be able to do that. And one of them was Justin Herbert. Again, Justin Herbert, I think, is one of the 5 or 6 best real-life quarterbacks in the league. But quite simply, we are ranking fantasy football assets in the long term. At what point do we think Justin Herbert is going to be in the top 10, top 12 in terms of pass attempts in a season?
I can make the argument that every quarterback that I have in the tier with Justin Herbert's finishes over the last 3 years, 17.1 points per game in 2022. That was the quarterback 15. A year in which, by the way, he threw for his 2nd most passing yards of his career. He had 4,700 passing yards, and he was quarterback 15 in points per game that year. 18.6 points per game in 2023. He was quarterback 8 that year, but there was a lot of quarterback injuries, if you guys recall, in 2023. 17.0 points per game last year, QB 14 in points per game. How many years over the next few years, given that they have this big offensive line, they run this gap scheme, they just drafted a running back in the 1st round, how many years is Justin Herbert over the next 3 to 4 going to outproduce, not be a better quarterback, be a better real-life quarterback than Bo Nix, than CJ Stroud, than Kyler Murray, than Baker Mayfield, than Trevor Lawrence, than Jordan Love, than Brock Purdy, then Dak Prescott, then a breakout season maybe from Bryce Young or Cam Ward? Like,
it's a tricky spot, because it's like, it almost feels like the Mahomes conversation, where Mahomes the last couple of years hasn't produced in fantasy, but everybody gives him the benefit of the doubt because he's the real life best quarterback in the league. The issue is that we can point to the construct of the Chiefs offense with their weapons potentially getting healthier, maybe Rashee Rice getting back, Xavier Worthy taking a step up. We saw Noah Gray at least showing flashes to be able to take over for Kelsey Long. Marquise Brown. You can at least see the structure of the offense pointing towards passing success. With Justin Herbert, everything that they're doing is to slow down the game, to trust the physicality up front, and to run through a lead ball carrier.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to say that Justin Herbert, if we had to just rank the best quarterbacks in the league, is not 6, 7, or 8 or something like that. Like he's up there and maybe even potentially higher. But from a fantasy production angle, 3 to 4 year window, if that's how you play dynasty fantasy football, which, production wise, if you're a contender, you probably are playing that way. Baker Mayfield, I'll bet anything he will outproduce Justin Herbert the next 3 to 4 years. I will bet anything that he does it. Even if he's 2 to 3 years older and not as good of a real life quarterback, he will outproduce Justin Herbert the next couple of years.
Yeah. But in terms of losers, like we mentioned with Najee Harris, aside from that, is there anything else important, or should we move on to the next skill position player with Matthew Golden? Packers, first time since 2002, take a wide receiver in the first round, Matthew Golden of your Texas Longhorns. Hook 'em. Let's give the little rundown on why Matthew Golden is the picture perfect fit for this wide receiver room.
Yeah, and similar to Egbuka, dynasty players don't like Matthew Golden, just generally speaking, because he doesn't have a great profile and all this kind of stuff. Like the NFL draft community was higher on Matthew Golden than the dynasty community is. I really like this for Golden because A, this is a good landing spot. I mean, this offense does not have this archetype of wide receiver. They have big guys, Wicks, Dubs, Watson when he's healthy. They have a slot in Jaden Reed, but they don't have a separator. They don't have a guy who can win on his routes against most corners in man coverage, in zone coverage, in press coverage. The reception perception numbers dictate that he's going to be a really good zone coverage beater, good press coverage beater. I think he can be the number one receiver here by year 2, by year 3, maybe even by the end of year 1. And this is going to be a guy that you won't have to spend. I can't imagine people are going to push him up the board to 106, 107.
No, I don't think so. And in terms of spots he could have went to, including Dallas, including maybe Tampa Bay, obviously, because they took Emeka Egbuka. Pittsburgh. This is the spot that has quarterback. First and foremost, you have a quarterback floor there. You have Jordan Love there locked up long term. You don't have to worry about a rotating cast that maybe you would have gotten in Pittsburgh. A. And B, he has the opportunity, like you said, to be the number one target. And I could only picture Green Bay looking at the success that Jordan Addison has had with the Minnesota Vikings and thinking, we need our own version of that. They went out and did it.
Yeah, and Jordan Love's a big winner here, man. Speed kills. You got a guy who can make big plays. He runs a 4.29. More consistent quarterback play from Jordan Love is his crux. The difference between his 2023 season, when he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and last year when he finished outside of the top 12 fantasy quarterbacks, was that he just was inconsistent week over week. Like there was games where you get the good Jordan Love games, and there was games where you would not get the Jordan Love games. And a lot of us lauded the Packers going into the season. Oh, they're going to run a committee at wide receiver. They don't have a true number one.
That just means that they don't have enough talent up top.
Exactly. Now you have a hierarchy here. At the very least, one of Reed or Golden will probably be your best receiver next year. And maybe it's Golden. You hope it's Golden. Reed can be a great number 2 for you. Dubs, Wicks, Watson. We'll see what happens with him. He's probably not going to be healthy for most of the year. Those guys can be contributors for you. Tucker Kraft, a good tight end. You have a little bit of a hierarchy to your offense. And of course, Josh Jacobs is going to hammer teams up the middle. And this is good news for him. More speed to stretch the defense, get him out of the box. And Josh Jacobs probably a sneaky winner here too. Obviously, slight loser to Jaden Reed. Definitely big loser, I think, for Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks especially. But Jaden Reed, a slight loser. I do kind of like Reed as maybe a sneaky buy low based on this selection, though.
Biggest loser has to be Christian Watson because this is a really big indictment on just how bad the knee might be.
Yeah, I would say nobody was really giving 2 shits about Christian Watson anyways, but I think Dubs and Wicks are the ones that lose the most value out of this. And then Reed, I think, loses some value, but I kind of like actually the fit because him and Golden don't really do the same thing, so they can kind of coexist together.
Yeah, fair. I was just more so pointing to the fact that he was a highly valued asset at one point. Right. It just really sucks because the injury, obviously the inconsistency, and now you're drafting a wide receiver. I mean, that knee injury looked really bad when it happened, so hopefully he can have a full recovery, but not great.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else on Golden? Because I think this is pretty straightforward. He's going to be where is he going to land in rookie drafts? Again, obviously Henderson, Judkins, those guys that are going to get drafted today are probably going to go over Golden, I would imagine, in most people's leagues, just given what the pedigree was for the dynasty community. They're great running back prospects. Burden probably will go ahead of him too. Let me ask you this. Burden on the Tennessee Titans, Matthew Golden in the situation that he's in. Would you rather have in a rookie draft?
Probably Salim Burden.
Okay. So I think that'll be a popular sentiment among most dynasty players too. So that leads me towards Golden's going to be 110, between 110 and 201, I would imagine, for most people, and I will take him there all day.
So I'll tell you right now, I moved him up to wide receiver 25 in Dynasty, just ahead of the DJ Moore, Chris Olave, Waddle, and Brandon Ayuk area. And just below the Flowers, Devontae Smith, Worthy, Addison, Rice, Egbuka, and Roma Dunze range.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. I'm just excited because we liked Golden's film. We do think that the profile needed some context applied to it. And we were willing to do that. We did it with Ladd McConkey last year, and we're doing it again with Matthew Golden this year. And this is just like McConkey's was last year. Really good fit for what he does well, and very good draft capital, of course, getting in the first round. Jaxson Dart was the final fantasy relevant player that went in the first round. The New York Giants trade up to 25 overall.
Your guy.
And yes, absolutely. And 34 was given up, the early second round pick that they have. They also gave up 99, which is a late third round pick that they had, and 26th third to go up. Thankfully, unlike Atlanta, they didn't have to give up a future first and a second round pick to go up and get a player in the first round. Jaxson Dart is a winner. Obviously, he gets first round capital. That's I know people will point to, oh, look at the history of late first round quarterbacks. It's like, all these bad options that go Kenny Pickett and all these dudes that go in the late first round and even into the second round. But here's the thing. First round capital is first round capital. Jordan Love also went in the first round, and he went around this range as well. This is great news for his dynasty value. He is now, in my opinion, the next quarterback after Goff, Tua, Penix, JJ, Bryce, that like the end of the solidified,
big
we know what they are
23
quarterbacks. Yeah. He's the big 23 at quarterback is what you just referred them as. Sam Darnold was the next guy after that for the most part, I would say. Geno, Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, whoever you'd want to put in that area. Jaxson Dart, because he's young, because he's a first round pick. Giants obviously needed a quarterback. He's got to be that next guy. I'd be worried about Jaxson Dart a little bit because he couldn't handle pressure in college playing behind that offensive line in New York, but hopefully he is able to sit for a good amount of time. The problem is that both the coach and the GM are on the hot seat, and they might need to get him in there.
So there's no secret. He was my quarterback 4. I believe he was your quarterback 3, correct?
Yeah, I had him ahead of Shedeur Sanders, just behind Jalen Milroe as my quarterback 3.
Yeah, there's clear upside. I do think his ability out of structure, his ability to create plays down the field, good mobility. It does remind me when he is in out of structure situations, similar to what we've seen from Brock Purdy, where you would think, okay, a little bit more immobile, but like when you actually watch him play, you realize, oh shoot, no, he's actually outside making plays on the roll, delivering darts down the field. No pun intended. Unfortunately, when he is in structure and he is forced to stay in the pocket, we don't really see the best pocket maneuvering. And like you said, with the New York Giants not having a set offensive line, I am very curious if you have Micah Parsons coming off the edge. You have, the Washington Commanders off our defensive line. They have a bunch of dogs there run by Dan Quinn. Obviously, the Eagles, I mean, not to forget them. They literally just won the Super Bowl off their defensive line, causing chaos up front. I am very curious to see how Dart is able to handle that type of pressure, like you said.
Yeah, I this might be scarring to Giants fans to hear this, but he is actually quite a lot like Daniel Jones in terms of what he can do. Here's the difference, though. Daniel Jones walked into a team with 6th overall draft capital, which was a lot of pressure on him and not a whole lot of talent around him. And he never really had great receiving talent his whole career. He made the playoffs with like Darius Slayton as his wide receiver 1 that year. Like Jaxson Dart has Malik Neighbors, who's one of the best young receivers in the league. He has investment on the offensive line. Let's hope some of it actually works out. And he has Dayball, who's a decent coach when he's got a quarterback. So I think he's also maybe going to be given the gift of time, which is that I can learn behind Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston for a couple of games. At the very least, let's just don't start this guy week 1, New York. Like week 10, get him on the field then. I think that's enough time that he's, maybe marinated a little bit, learned a bit from these veteran quarterbacks. Obviously, winner here has to be Malik Neighbors because going into the offseason, what was the option? Like it would have been better if he got Matthew Stafford as his quarterback or something like that. But Russell Wilson and Jameis are upgrades from what he had last year. And I like Jaxson Dart enough. I think he can play. I think he can develop so that you might have a long-term quarterback option here. Again, I don't think it's the best case scenario for Malik Neighbors, what happened, but I do think it is an upgrade to what was going into the offseason.
Yep. No, I think you labeled it fine. At least in the intermediate, whether it's Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, or maybe they throw Dart out there week 1, which I tend to not think is going to be the case.
If he does, he must have just smoked training camp and he's ready to be a stud.
Yeah, it would only be a good sign if he's out there week 1. More realistically, you'll see Russ or Jameis, more so probably going to end up being Russ, take the reins as the starting quarterback, at least for the first 5 to 7 weeks of the year. But if the Giants start 2-4, 2-5, 1-6, around that range, you're going to hear a lot of Dart chants in New York.
Yeah. And again, you don't want the kid on the field before he's ready. Even if you, like, I would say, even if you're going to lose your job as the GM and the coach, you don't want to rush this kid on the field. You don't want to affect his confidence. Hopefully he's going to be ready sooner than he isn't, because he would buy you time if you're Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, obviously, or Joe Shane, because you would presumably have hit on a quarterback. And I'm sure Abdul Carter is going to be a stud off of the edge, who was your first pick in this draft, which also alleviates a little bit of pressure off of Dart. He wasn't the first pick that you made. You didn't pick him at 3. He's not the headliner of your draft class. Abdul Carter is, which is good for him. And you might have, a great haul here. Like we obviously watched the Houston Texans get a number 1 edge rusher and a quarterback a couple of years ago. Not saying Jaxson Dart, CJ Stroud, far from it. But if he can develop, I do think he can be a pretty solid quarterback for you. I said he had all the best qualities of Will Levis, which seems like an insult, but it's not. He also has some of the good qualities of Daniel Jones. I think at the absolute best case scenario, like you said, he turns into Brock Purdy for you. Sneaky winner here too is Tyrone Tracy, because they don't have a second. They didn't spend a first round pick on a running back. They still have 65. They still have 105. But losing 34 and 99 in the trade up for Jaxson Dart helps, because that's now 2 of the 4 picks that could have been spent on a running back off the board for you. So if you're Tyrone Tracy managers, clench your cheeks a little bit that they don't spend 65 on a running back, and 105 is a 4th round pick, so it would hurt a lot less. But if they don't spend either of those picks on a running back, Tyrone Tracy is going to be a legitimate top 15 to 18 dude.
Yeah, like you said, they traded 2 high-end day 2 picks, like you said, top 100 pick there at 99, obviously 34 overall, big-time spot for a potential falling running back, maybe a Trevion Henderson, maybe a Quinshon Judkins. There was at least the possibility. Now, obviously, it might have been unlikely, but just getting those assets off the table for New York, like you said, for a roster that still has needs up front, that still has needs on the defensive back end. I don't think spending another pick at running back, especially with how good Tracy was in his rookie year, is now a priority for them. So like you said, if you can escape the draft and maybe all they add is a round 6 Raheem Sanders, you're looking good if you're Tyrone Tracy managers.
Yeah, it's funny that you went round 6 Raheem Sanders. That was exactly what I was going to chime in
Really?
with. Same running back, same draft capital. That's hilarious. Anyways, loser of this is obviously Russell Wilson, if he was going to be a long-term option. Not like anybody probably thought this, but if you have Russ on a dynasty roster thinking you were going to get a full year out of him, doesn't look like that's going to be the case anymore. But you probably expected they were going to at least draft an early 2nd round quarterback or something like that. Anyways, that is the end of the first round. We will be live tonight for day 2, round 2, round 3. Obviously, the fantasy relevant day for the most of us, especially with all these running backs still on the board.
I'll be a little more put together.
Absolutely. Danny will be a little bit more functional today. Fun fact, I don't know if you saw my tweet today. My McDonald's was on my porch when I woke up this morning. It was delivered at 11:15 p.m. I ordered it at 9:30.
Did you ask for a refund or anything?
I said it was cold and it was a late delivery, and they gave me a half refund. So for those of you guys that were in our stream last night, I tried to order McDonald's, and because I live in the middle of, buttfuck nowhere, there wasn't connecting a DoorDash driver to it. And I thought they canceled my order, and they delivered it about an hour and a half after I ordered it, which is funny as hell to me. But yeah, Maria literally goes, she's like, there's McDonald's on the front porch this morning. And I was like, are you kidding me? I thought they canceled the order. It looked in my app, the order disappeared.
Not fun. You were concerned about when your meal was coming. Meanwhile, I was too busy mucking wings in the back room of our draft stream.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe. If you want updated dynasty rankings, all of the first round stuff is updated in my dynasty rankings right now. Super flex, one quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. As the draft goes along, we're going to continually have the conversations, update the players. 34 overall, Luther Burden goes off the board. Okay, where's Luther Burden rank in Dynasty? We're going to have that conversation immediately. Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide will be updated Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, so that if you guys have a rookie draft immediately after the NFL draft, you will be covered. Make sure you guys are getting that. All of that stuff over on flockfantasy.com. Promo code FSE when you sign up. Gets you 7 days for free, 30% off any of the packages, 6 months for free when you sign up annually. That will cover you from now all the way until next year's rookie drafts pretty much. And you will also get a free team review voucher to get a breakdown from either of us, and a free buy, sell, hold voucher, a report voucher as well, to get a breakdown on some trade targets, some buys, some sells, and some holds for your dynasty roster. So if that all interests you, check it out down below. Link will be in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.